Okay, so I worked about 4 hours and 15 minutes of gig work today so far, and not sure if I'm going to do any more today. There's a high school football game here soon that I may go to, but in about 4 hours and 15 minutes, I made $87. So not too shabby. Could be better, could be worse. I'm satisfied with it. That's just been with Grubhub and Uber, and I'm still waiting on my permanent tags and registration so I can get Lyft started again, because they're not quite as cooperative as Uber has been with me with getting a new vehicle added to the situation. So we're still working Grubhub and Uber, and this is an interesting kind of gig, I guess. It's a gig. That's what we call it, gig work. I've often likened driving for Uber and Lyft to being a bartender without the alcohol. You get passengers, and some of them want to just talk about their life story. Others, they'll sit and not say anything. But I've had a lot of chances to listen, a lot of opportunities to just hear people out and just be a sounding board. And sometimes I'll give my thoughts if I feel like the situation warrants it, or if they ask for it, or even give advice or whatever. But sometimes we get passengers that really just enlighten us and give us a perspective about what's going on in the world, things that we haven't thought of. And that has been the case for me today with one passenger in particular, and I'm going to tell you about it. But the backstory is Hurricane Helene. We know the damage that hurricane did in Florida, and then Milton came right through that. But Helene came on up here to Tennessee and wreaked devastation as well. So we know a little bit of something about that here in Tennessee, and picked up a guy today who works with the Humane Society, and he was asking me what other things I do besides driving for Uber. I get that question a lot, and I just turn it back on them sometimes, and I started asking him, okay, what do you do? And he told me he worked for the Humane Society. So I said, what exactly do you do with the Humane Society? Is it still, all about taking care of animals and things? Because that's what I remember from my childhood. And he said it was. He said that he pretty much does what a group of women tell him to do. We got a chuckle out of that. Talked about how he drives I guess I consider it, the way he described it, maybe a box truck. When people give donations, he goes and picks up the donations, and they sell the stuff to raise money or just whatever. And he told me that they put 55 dogs on an airplane to Chicago the other day, and then the very next day they put 30 more dogs on an airplane to Chicago. And the reason for that is because of these storms, this hurricane and the flooding that we've seen in this area, northeast Tennessee and parts of North Carolina, that have just wiped out entire neighborhoods. And so these dogs and cats that have been, I don't want to say rounded up, but it's like some people have had to just turn their dogs into these shelters, and the shelters are full, and they don't have any more room, and they're having to fly these dogs out of state because people, can you just imagine on top of all the devastation, these people have lost their homes. That's what the problem is. These people have lost their homes, and they don't have anywhere for a dog anymore. So on top of losing their home and everything else they've had to give up their best friend. And, I know we will try to rationalize when we hear something like that and say, well, I wouldn't give up my best friend. I'd find somebody to take it temporarily or whatever. But when everybody in your community has been washed out, you may not know anybody else. A lot of these people may be in that situation where they don't have any other option, because all the people they know who might have taken their dog temporarily are in the same condition that they're in, because entire communities have been devastated. So, that really gave me some perspective about what these folks, I know they're suffering already. I've tried to work with our church and other entities to collect donations and deliver donations, and we've been able to do some of that, and our church still has donations coming in, and we're distributing items of need. But these are things you just don't think about, how people could be just on top of all of the things that they've lost, the devastation and the heartbreak of having to give up your dog. If nothing else, it really helped me to put that in a greater perspective and consider things that I hadn't considered. I'd considered a lot, but that's one thing that I hadn't considered. But I'm considering it now. So what can we do about it? Well, I don't know at this point. But one thing I do know is with this information, it'll help us better to direct our prayers for these folks, and to know specifically how we can pray for them. All right, I'm out for now. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.